Welcome to the fourth devlog for my still unnamed programming management game. This time I'll restrain myself with the game genre jokes. This game is about controlling a group of characters as they explore dungeons and bring back loot, which you use to upgrade the town, which makes the adventurers more effective, etc. Rather than focusing on high-level management of pre-designed AI characters, the core game is about programming the characters yourself using a graphical programming environment, or, for the truly adventurous, a low-level WebAssembly API. Players will be able to play the game solo locally or upload their AIs to a server for asynchronous multiplayer competitions. This week I've stepped away from the look and feel, since I think that's in a good place for the time being, and have been thinking about the core game loop, and please believe me when I say this, there is a lot of work to do there. I'm a pretty experienced programmer, and I've been doing art in various forms my whole life, even if I'm not very good at it. But when it comes to game design, at that I am a complete novice. So this aspect of the game has been really fun and really interesting, but challenging, and honestly sort of like pulling hen's teeth, which I'm not even sure what that means, but you get the idea. My current idea about how the game loop works is this. The player will take manual control over a character and use it to explore a new area of the dungeon and get a sense of what resources and hazards there are. Ambitious players may completely automate the exploration. Once an area is explored, the player will select equipment and program behaviors which allow autonomous characters to work effectively in that area, which allows them to farm it for resources. The gathered resources allow the player to upgrade through a tech tree, which unlocks new abilities, equipment, and, when combined with exploration, new areas of the dungeon. I've always planned for there to be roguelike aspects to the game, but they are, honestly, increasingly vague. That's a tricky topic, and I'm going to put off talking about it to a future devlog, mostly because I'm still making up my mind about how I want to approach it. When thinking about the game loop, I have a couple of constraints I want to stick to. The first is that this is not a factory game. There will likely be a building aspect to it, but I want it to work more like in a colony sim like RimWorld than in a factory game like Factorio. The focus is on customizing the behavior of agents in the game rather than on assembling modular components into a complex machine. Any supply line optimizations or things like that will be in terms of using the existing environment in the game more effectively rather than on building new infrastructure. The second is that the monsters in the game are obstacles, but not resources. I don't want this to be a game about killing all of the orcs and looting their corpses or whatnot. That means that with some possible exceptions, one of which I'll talk about in a second, monsters don't drop loot or experience. They will be hostile, at least sometimes, but generally the only benefit in fighting them will be self-defense or in clearing a route to some resource that they're guarding. So then how does resource gathering work? It's more like mining or farming, where characters extract resources from objects in the environment, which can be potentially improved through cultivation. Resources can be carried back to the town or converted in the dungeon into more valuable forms, which are easier to transport. In the current version, I have these placeholder trees which drop fruit. The fruit can be taken to conversion stations and turned into gold. At this point, I'm not sure if different resources will be ingredients in a crafting system or just a hierarchy of increasingly value-dense currency. Depends on whether a crafting system feels necessary, and I'm not sure that it does yet. The conversion stations aren't something the player builds, they are part of the level layout. Another aspect of the game loop I want to have is that sending a character into the dungeon is an investment, with some risk. The characters don't permanently die. If they are killed in the dungeon, they respawn in town. But they need equipment, and the equipment is dropped in the dungeon when they die, and it may or may not be recoverable. Initially, I thought that it just wouldn't be recoverable at all, but I decided that being able to recover it, but having that be challenging, was strategically interesting, which leads me to the newest creature type I've added, rats. The final design may not actually be rats, but some similar small and mostly harmless creature or spirit. The rats spawn throughout the dungeon and are not aggressive, but do pick up any object on the ground and carry it off. If you don't catch them before they leave the level, the object is lost. I feel like this has a nice ecosystem-like vibe, which makes the loss of items after a character dies feel organic, but it's also something you could stop if you were careful. It could also lead to interesting strategies like blocking off all the rat holes in a level but one and posting a character by it to collect all the resources the rats bring and try and leave the level with. Alright, I think that's about all I have for this one. I hope you'll join me next time when I'll talk more about gameplay work and also take a closer look at the command system the game uses to translate AI choice into actual game actions. Thank you for watching.